we are already past the time that we normally begin the regular portion of our meeting. I hereby convene the June 25th, 2013 meeting of the Marion County School Board. For the courtesy of those listening to the meeting, I'm requesting everybody in the audience, please turn off your cell phones and put them on vibrate. Board members, I'd like to bring up Ms. Pam Brewer. She's the Executive Director of our K-12 Academic Services, and she's going to introduce some of our staff and students.
I need to run and get our guests.
All right.
You all can come right up here. Good evening, board. Thank you for having us here. We are surrounded by some amazing students and Mr. Scott Borth, who is the assistant principal at Horizon Academy at Marion Oaks. These are students who have been participating all year in our 21st Century Grant. I'd like to tell you just a little bit. There were several public comments made regarding finding alternative revenue sources, and certainly grants are an amazing way that we can offer some really neat opportunities to our students above and beyond what is allocated to us by the state and federal government. The 21st Century Grant is a program that we have housed at 4 of our middle schools. They're all Title I middle schools. You'll find it at Fort McCoy, North Marion Middle, Lakeware Middle, and Horizon Academy. And it is through these funds that we are able to do some pretty awesome things with our students beyond the school day. With that being said, I'm going to have Mr. Borth come up and tell you a little bit more about the program and the amazing kids he's brought with him.
Good evening. Thank you for having us. We're very excited to be here. They're a little bit nervous because they want to give a little presentation to you. But it is provided a tremendous opportunity for the students at our school through ecological science programs. We even offer Taekwondo, archery, cooking classes, sewing classes, and all these are tied into academics at Horizon Academy. And so these are some of our students that are participating throughout the school year and this summer. And so we're real excited that they joined us tonight, and they're going to speak to you for just a minute.
Dear school board members, we are honored to be here and would like to offer you this quote from Thomas Edison. Many of life's failures are people who did not realize how close they were to success when they gave up. We, the 21st century students, would like to thank the Marion County Public Schools and our grade school Horizon Academy at Marion Oaks for realizing how close we are to greatness and offering us the opportunity to succeed through the 21st Century After School Summer Program. The program has offered us extra time to enrich our learning through activities like playing golf, launching rockets, building robots, exploring magnetics, and investigating forensic science. We are proud that our parents were able to take ESOL classes that the grant offered at Horizon. The program gives us time to finish our homework with teachers there to help us when we need it. We appreciate our school and the 21st Century program because we want to be successful.
Thank you.
Thank you. Not only are our students affected by this, but so are their parents. We've offered literacy classes and ESOL classes, English-speaking classes at our school, and we have a large group of parents that are participating as well. So we're very grateful for the grant and what it's doing for not only our school, but for the community at Marion Oaks. Okay, you want to do the pledge? Yeah. We'd like to do the pledge now. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Very good. Thank you very much.
Mr. Superintendent. Mr. Chairman, I recommend approval of the agenda for the June 25th, 2013 school board meeting with the materials in the board packet. Those materials distributed to board members at the meeting, the audio recording and DVD included as part of the official record of the meeting.
May I have a motion on the superintendent's recommendation?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Boynton, second by Ms. Ely. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? And the motion should pass 5-0. Okay. She's having some technical problems. Everybody else, please lock in your votes. All right, motion does pass. May I have a motion to approve the minutes for the May 23rd, 2013 administrative briefing and work session, the May 28th, 2013 school board meeting? A motion and a second.
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Boynton,
Second.
second by Ms. Ely. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? And I believe the motion will pass 5-0. Please lock your votes in. And it does pass 5-0. Board, I'd like to bring up Ms. Susan McGuire. She is our Community and Homeless Liaison, and she's going to recognize some volunteers.
Good evening. What I'm here for tonight is to recognize our schools for their support and use and logging all their hours for their volunteers. What we have is the Florida Department of Education has a couple of different categories. We have golden schools and we have silver schools. This year, Marion County has 32 golden schools, and we actually have one silver school that we'll be presenting tonight. I'm sending you a copy of the hours of all the schools that have been listed and also a summary of our overall volunteer hours and the breakdown per school and per category. I am excited to say that this year, with the recordings of our school, our total volunteer hours are up probably about 10,000 from last year, which is very exciting. Our volunteers play such a vital role in our classrooms and with our students. They also help in the media centers and the offices of our school. And it would be wonderful to recognize all of the schools, which you do have a list of, but I'm going to recognize the top 11 schools this evening. The first school I'm going to call up is Westport High School, and Ms. Elsperman is here. Westport High School this year logged 17,140 hours. They were our top school in the school district, which was very exciting. So there you go. Congratulations. Thank you. And I know that Ms. Elsperman will tell you that at a high school level, logging hours can be a little challenging, and you have so many after-school activities and evenings and weekends, and I think they just did an awesome job this year. Next to be recognized is Dr. N.H. Jones that had 13,236 hours, and Ms. Laffey is here. Thank you. Shady Hill also is being recognized with 11,771 hours, and Mr. Bennett and Ms. Riedel are both here to accept. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Ms. Hughes is here for Stanton Wearsdale, and Stanton had 10,615 hours, which is exciting, and they use a lot of volunteers. If you've ever been out at their little cultural fair in the spring, it's wonderful. So congratulations. Thank you. Mrs. Kennard is here for Ward Highlands Elementary with 9,727 hours. Congratulations. Ms. Fortner is here representing Bellevue Santos, who had 9,286 hours. There you are. Thank you. Ms. Hartley is here from Hammett Bowen. Hammett Bowen registered 7,798 hours this year. Congratulations. Denellen Elementary, Ms. Wilkerson is here, and this year they had 7,728 hours. Ms. Dickey is here too. Oakcrest Elementary, Ms. Dudley is here. They registered 6,713 hours. Congratulations. Ms. Oliver is here, Madison Street Elementary, 6,587 hours. Congratulations. And Marion Oaks is here, 6,444 hours, and Ms. Hornsby is here for them. I know that it was the top 11, which is a little bit different, but when I looked at the hours and they were so close, I had to include all of the schools. Now, for the Golden School, just so you know, the recorded hours have to be at least double the number of the student enrollment. They have to have an on-site volunteer coordinator who's been trained and, of course, work with their staff in using and supporting volunteers. Now, our only Golden School, which can only be a secondary school this year or any year, is Westport High, and they are listed as a silver school and a golden school. And a silver school is that they recorded double the number of hours of their student volunteers as well as their adult volunteers. So, Ms. Elsperman. I just want to say it's such a pleasure to work with these schools and their staff, with our volunteers, and they do such wonderful things with recognizing them and supporting them, and I'm sure they would all agree that you can't do a lot of the things you do at your school without our volunteers. So thank you for this opportunity.
Right here for a second, please.
Thank you. Board members, are there any questions about the report or any of the paperwork I submitted to you?
I have a question.
Sure.
I know in the past we were given money from the state for the number of volunteer hours. Is that not ever going to?
Not since I've been doing this. There's not numbers, but they still require us to report certain hours to them annually.
Okay. But we get no money.
No. Sorry.
Okay. Too bad.
Susan,
Mr. James.
I just want to commend you for a job well done.
Thank
Working
you.
with our volunteers. I know how difficult it is to keep track of all those hours and how much time the principals put in terms of making that happen.
Absolutely.
But I do know that you have a big event coming on, stuff like Stuff the Bus and things like that.
Yes.
And I'd love for you to talk about it because I was just looking at this yellow bus.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Absolutely. Just real quick, of course, Stuff the Bus is a partnership between my office and veterans organizations that started over 10 years ago. And what we do is we spend pretty much any Saturday, most of you have been out there, July and August, stuffing the bus of school supplies that go to every school. And those of you who have been at school and principals know that you get boxes and boxes and boxes of school supplies that match your school's supply list. And any child or family who needs assistance, the supplies are at the school. Nobody has to drive anywhere, and as soon as the guidance office gets low, they email me. And we not only do school supplies, we do hygiene items, we do new sneakers, and we do some clothing. So anyone wants to spend a little bit of time out in the sun on a Saturday afternoon in July or August, just let me know. We'd love to have you. And it's such a worthwhile, volunteer-driven program. So I think the school system and the students benefit tremendously from it.
And how long have you been doing it?
It'll be 12 years.
And I'd just like to give you a round of applause because we have grown in that area
Thank
tremendously.
you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Board, may I have a motion to adopt Resolution 13-03, designating certain members for the financial team.
Second.
Discussion? Seeing none? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The motion should pass 5-0. Please lock your votes in. May I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as submitted?
Second.
Motion by Ms. Boynton, second by Mr. James. Are there any changes at this time? Seeing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? And the motion should pass 5-0. Please lock your votes in. I need to do that. Yes, I know. I'm trying to do two things at one time. So. All right, and the motion does pass 5-0. May I have a motion to approve the proposal from the superintendent for a revised 2013-2014 school level and district level staffing plan, which has been provided to you under a separate cover. I need a motion.
So moved.
Okay. Motion by Ms. Stacy, second by Mr. James. Mr. James has requested time to offer an amendment, so I'm going to go to him first. Mr. James.
Yes, I'd like to offer an amendment to return the third assistant principal unit to Westport High School. And it's very clear in my mind.
Let me get a second for you first, but do you have a second? I'll second it just so we can go ahead.
I'll second it too, Mr.
Okay.
It's very clear in my mind that we really don't understand what we're talking about when we talk about our mega schools. Westport High School is a mega school for the people that have not have walked across Westport. We're talking a school with 2,400 students. We're talking about a school with nearest comparable size. We find schools in Jacksonville, Orlando, Tampa, and Miami to compare to Westport in terms of that. Westport will have 20 to 30 new teachers on campus. They will be doing 8 to 9 evaluations, and some of these evaluations when you don't have quality people and you have to go spend additional time in there. And when I think in terms of what we're talking about in terms of this school, I know that we as a district have to recognize the fact that we have mega schools, and the mega schools are different, and they need more resources, because when you're talking about 118 employees, or possibly more, that need to be evaluated 18 times, when you look at the number of students that will be on that campus, and it may go up to 2,500, and to put them in a category with the 1As, the 2As, and the 3As, well, we don't have a 1A in public schools, but our 3As and 4A schools. Westport High School is an A. That is the top of the classification. You go from 2A, 3A, to 5A, to 6A. This is where they are. They are mega school. And so when I look at the staffing plan, I will tell you this. We need to add, or we need to keep that assistant principal there, because this is the largest high school we have, and these people are having to travel from to Jacksonville just to compete at their own level. So that's where I am with that. And so, board, I really think as a board we need to really look at what we're doing here, because I will tell you, when Chris was up there talking, he had some valid points, some very valid points on how we will comply with all the requirements that we needed, especially in these mega schools. We have Westport that have somebody in place right now. I know at some point we need to look at Forest High School again, because Forest High School is at 2,058, and I think they will move to a mega level as well. And so when I think in terms of that, they will be doing the same number of evaluation, and that is a lot of people on campus for us to be lumping all of those schools in one category. So this is where I am with it, and I would like for the board to understand, I have walked those halls, and I know there's a difference between 1,000 kids on campus than 2,500 on campus. And I will tell you this, when you look at the course of the day, if you have 2,000 kids on campus, at the end of the day, there's 14,000 kids that have roamed that campus, because every time the bell rang, those kids will have to move. And this is where you have your problems, and you need to have the administrative staff there to handle these kids. That's where I am with that.
All right, before we go on, Ms. Walker, for the record, the motion to was by Mr. James and the second by Ms. Boynton. All right, and just board members, just to update you on the dollar and the three positions. We're talking probably about $200,000 with the cost of the benefit package. That will buy somewhere between 4 to 5 either teachers, starting teacher level, or other staff personnel that's also involved in it. So I just wanted you to know on those those figures. Ms. Stacy, did you want to? I was gonna, you're over there nodding your head. So
I'd like to talk about. I'll talk about that, but I also like to talk about the staffing plan also. But but I'd like to address what Mr. James said. I'll address his amendment. The way I look at it is that everybody's sacrificing. No one has more respect for the leadership at Westport High School than I do. But when we're making hard decisions and we're having to cut the teacher from the classroom, I just believe that our administrators will step up to the plate and push the extra time in, and they may have to work a little bit extra. Like teachers are still grading when they get grading papers a lot of times at night and doing things. I mean, they may have to push a little bit longer day, because right now it's hardship time, and I feel like that the administrators are going to have to, they're going to have to push the envelope just like everyone else. I mean, they may be in classrooms substituting if they have to, but I'm sorry, Mr. James, I respect your request, and under good times I would agree, but right now those three assistant principals, if that's $200,000, I'm looking at not really 3 or 4 teachers. I'm looking at like 8 when you spread it out, since they're already 18,000, to add to what it would take to staff 8 classrooms. And I'm sorry, I just have to stand with the student in the classroom right now and ask the administrators to really push it up a notch, and maybe just for this one year. Maybe there'll be light at the end of the tunnel next year that we can get that position back. But I believe that Mrs. Elsperman, I know her, she was my child's principal. I believe she'll do her magic and she will make that school work.
Okay, when I hear that, and I know that you have never experienced being at a super high school. And when I say that, and for the people that have never, yes, ma'am, I spend a lot of time there. And for you to insinuate that these people are not doing that. If you go to Westport High School, every night there's something going on at that school. And when I say this to you, and for the people that have not experienced this, what I am saying to you is that this is a mega high school. Even the Florida High School Association have identified it as one of the largest high schools in the state of Florida. So you're asking us to staff the same high school, the same as if you had 1,000 students there versus 2,500. And you have a group of demographics that's unheard of that's in that school. We had the opportunity to sit down at the Florida School Board Association on school safety. And I had an opportunity to just look at some of the things that was going on in terms of safety and all of that. When I think in terms of what I'm asking here, as a person that has been around the high school level and know what it takes to run a high school, and when I think in terms of all the things that go on, there's no way we can staff Westport the same as we can staff Dunellen, North Marion, and all of that, because you have twice the number of students.
Mr. James, I agree with you. And understanding at all times when staff and the superintendent brought the staffing plan to us, we should always know that the staffing plan is a work in progress. And understanding that and knowing that we're going to give some guidance to principals to bring back to our administration to let us know their needs. versus us telling them their needs, we will then be investing in the whole child, the whole education system. I think it's up to us to put leadership back in the classroom and back into the administration. The administration can tell us, do we need 3 pairs? Do we need these things? And so I think when your staff brought us this plan, they had that in there, ways for us to understand that these things were working in progress and were a guide for us. So I think we need to follow that and put those 3 VPs back in, because we as a board can't sit behind and micromanage something that we don't have the experience for. Because I've been to Westport on days when it's just been too busy, that even having a resource officer on that campus isn't enough. We're dealing with students and personalities, but they all understand they're there for one reason, to be educated. But I think the role of those VPs at those schools are totally important to this administration, or it would not have been in the staffing plan. And I think that's where some people in the community begin to say we lose confidence, because this administration brought this to us. This is our need. So when we see their need, then we have to react to it, but make a wise choice in understanding that any time we can call that staffing plan back for a vote again. So I want us to be wise and prudent about making the decisions, knowing that we as a board have the authority to bring that back.
Mr. James, I have a question. What is the role of the assistant principals at Westport High? Could you tell us what each of them do?
Well, you got one in charge of discipline. You got AP in charge of the curriculum, and then you got another one in charge of rather the textbooks and all of those things that go on. And that's just a small portion of that. And I'm sure the superintendent, Mr. Lankford, could you come up and give us the rest of the detail on what these people do at your schools? And one of the things I'm going to say to you more than anything else, when you start dealing with this many students and you have to evaluate this many teachers, and we have to look at the quality of the work that our staff is doing. And I would like to remind this board that Westport has been an A school for the last 3 outings. And this have to have something to do with administrative and what these APs and assistants are doing. And we have to be real careful on this board, because I'm questioning what we're doing is defacing the quality of what we're getting in there. Mr. Langer, would you help Ms. Ely with what those principals are doing, what those APs are doing?
Like textbooks. What else does he do besides textbooks?
The assistant principal for instruction kind of deals with the day-to-day instructional part of the school. Everything from the accounting of all the textbooks and the issuance and those kinds of things, ordering materials, helping the day-to-day operation that goes on in the school, providing training and so forth.
Is he in charge of the data collection?
So that typically all 3 are involved with data in some
Analysis.
particular area. The assistant principal for curriculum is more of a global. They are in charge of master scheduling, of implementing and answering statewide mandates and those kinds of things. And then, of course, the discipline person is the one that primary function is the discipline and the safety of the school. So there are specific jobs for each one. Schools that have 2 do all 3 of those areas, but with 2 people. I will say that with 2,400 to 2,500 students, there's a great deal more of the day-to-day necessities by each one of the 3 than there would be at a smaller school that might have 2. And then as Mr. James expressed, the requirements now of the evaluation system is much, much greater. So the staff that would be larger at Westport High School would require more of the administration in terms of evaluation than a school, a smaller one that had
And
2.
are all those 3 APs able to do the evaluations?
Yes,
in
ma'am.
addition to the
Yes, ma'am.
principal?
All
Okay.
3 APs
Okay.
and the principal are the ones in charge of evaluations.
Let's go to Ms. Stacy and then Mr. James.
Has Forest High requested a 3rd AP?
They have asked for it, and they had a 3rd AP, which was, there became a vacancy there, and they are requesting one. And
When was their vacancy?
Gosh, Mr. Tomlin, do you recall?
No, sir, I don't.
I-
It was recent, this spring, an assistant principal became a principal.
I think that was, yes, I think it happened this spring, so they had to close out the year.
Mr. Carson was the
with two.
principal when we determined during this budget crunch, if you would, not to fill the third position when that became vacated this spring.
Is this not a position as far as, is there some rethinking and re-governing of our schools that you might put into place where possibly a teacher position could maybe do some of the textbook collection? Because it sounds a bit like a clerical type position where maybe a teacher or someone that's not paid as much.
Well, it may sound that way. I can assure you that those textbooks and the various duties that the assistant principals do are far from a clerical type of things. Typically, an AP who might be in charge of textbook issuance has a couple of people, some non-instructional, that actually do the day-to-day, but it's the organization part of it, and that's just one aspect of a principal. The administrative duties that are done by the assistant principals, each year, because of the mandated procedures from the state of Florida, from the federal government, from educational bureaucracy, has grown more and more and more. And so if we deplete the number of administrators, which are no more important than a classroom teacher. Please don't think that one is more important than the other. As much as we are saddened by the state of affairs and what we're having to do, the administration is likewise like the teachers. There are a lot of things that have to be done, and there are things that certain contract negotiations don't allow teachers or anybody other than administration to be involved with.
Well, have we considered possibly if things like that had to be done, we could maybe, I don't believe we need to, board policy should not keep Mr. Tomlin from running this district properly, but if we have to hire some administrators, basically if they're not in a classroom and they're not doing the daily teacher duties every day, possibly for a teacher's salary, some of the administrators could do some, you could elevate, you could make a new position. I mean, board policy could possibly
and we have
make
had
a
those things like testing coordinators and vocational administrators and those kinds of things, and those obviously have been cut also. So we have not only lessen the amount of people that are directly in front of kids, we've had to lessen the amount of people that are doing administrative type of tasks at the schools.
Because
with the same thing.
I believe that people that, I believe teachers could do some of these duties as far as some of the things that we're paying administrators to do, and possibly this is a time where we can work on some of the inequity between the teacher salary and the administrative salary. We may have to start looking at some of those things in these very, very difficult times. But I guess right now, with times like they are, I just feel like we're asking teachers to work for less than we pay a painter's helper in our district. And I just, with good conscience, to do what's right, I just can't vote to have another administrator right now. Possibly, stretch it out maybe next year when things look better. But, when I look at people that are not in the classroom and they're not being paid what they should be paid, I just can't. I just want to ask the administrators to step up and work hard just like we're asking the teachers to sacrifice.
And I know that our administrators work extremely hard.
They do.
Typically, as a high school principal, which I've been for 6 or 7 years, it was easily a 60, 70-hour
I'm
week
sure it
every
was.
single week.
I'm sure it
And
was.
that's not just the principal, but that is not only assistant principals, but folks like activities directors, deans, and those kinds of
Right.
folks that are teachers that have stepped up to help with administration. So there is some of that.
Right. I think the teachers give of their time. They help to organize all kinds of things for the schools. They volunteer to be involved with the Honor Society and different things, and they're volunteering their extra hours and they're not being compensated. But I just feel like during times like this that, I may be the only lone vote and that's okay.
Yes, ma'am.
But I think right now, I just have to think of the classroom.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay?
That's good, Mr. James.
You know, and when I say this and I look at all the teachers out there, you all have to understand when you pick up that phone and then you mash a button, there's somebody up front that can respond to you. And when I say this, I've heard everything that she said, Ms. Stacy has said, and again, when I look at what we're talking about here, we're talking about providing the necessary support that this school needed. We've taken vocation administrators and all those people out of there, and where do you think that's going? When I say this to you, when you look at mega schools, and when you're talking about a mega school, you're talking about schools that are talking about down there about Miami and Tampa and all of that, and this is what this is about. Ocala is not the little small town anymore. This school is not the little small town school anymore. This is one of the largest schools in the state of Florida that we are trying to operate like it's a 3A school with 1,000 kids or with 1,500 kids. It's not that. We look at the technology that's involved in what we're doing today. And you're saying we can get a part-timer in there, and I guarantee you, you will see our test scores in this county begin to slip because of the leadership that we have really overburdened those people. And if you've ever gone out to Westport High School during the course of after hours, there's always an administrator or somebody on that campus, and there's something going on. That's a part of it. Why am I saying this? Because I know one thing. We didn't step up when we had the .25, and we should have voted for it. We should have voted for it when we had the millage, and I got people sitting out here hungry now trying to make me make a bad decision. And I'm not going to do it because I know what will happen out there. And this is what this is about. We don't need to continue to make bad decisions here.
Ms. Ely.
Mr. James probably remembers, but way back when, there was a certain number of students in an elementary school before the principals could get an assistant principal, and I think that might be something we need to look at as a board. If you have 2,000, that might be the limit to add another assistant principal. But I agree with you, Mr. James. I know it's a huge job. I've been out at Westport's graduation. Ms. Elsperman did a great job, but there's thousands, it seems like more than 2,000 kids out there. There's a lot of kids, but they're doing a great job, and we just want them to continue to do that. And I agree with you. I really think we need that extra person out there.
And I just wanted to ask you one question, because I know I went over to Vanguard with you when you were the principal there. What role did the assistant principals have in the accreditation process? Was it because I know it took a lot to get that through for Vanguard to get that accreditation, and what role was the assistant principals in that?
That's a perfect example of different projects, different mandates that are required, and so each of the assistant principals took areas of the accreditation process, formed committees, helped to collate all the information, put it all together, do presentations for the visiting team, and then work together to with the team to determine the accreditation. But that's a perfect example of the kinds of mandated projects that schools go through the entire year that they're in operation.
So with that said, it leads me to truly support putting those 3 APs back, being that I went through the process with Vanguard and knowing that without those APs in place, that was a truly positive experience for our county, for your school to get the accreditation, and it shows that you need staff. It shows that there's a need. And so I'm just going to support your motion, Mr. James.
One thing now, I only asked for Westport.
Just for Westport.
But I do know that Forest will be coming, and I know we need to set a precedent. And Ms. Ely brought up a good point. When we start looking at these numbers, I know that Forest is evaluating 118 people too. And I will remind all of you that we're talking about 2 super high schools where they're put under a lot of pressure simply because there's nobody in this area their size. So eventually, I would like to come back with Forest simply because Forest don't have a vacancy right now. I mean, they did have a vacancy. These people at Westport had everybody in place to make another A. But what we would do, we would be cutting their chances. I'm not going to say cut their chances. I just have a hard time taking them away from them when they're doing so well. You saw it tonight. They're doing extremely well. So that's where my motion is, to add the assistant principal back to Westport.
All right. Any other? Okay, seeing none.
Now, I do
Go
have
ahead.
something I want to talk about on the staffing plan, but not the amendments. Do you want to vote on this
No,
amendment?
we have to deal with the amendment first.
Okay.
All right. All right. All those in favor, if there's no more discussion on the amendment, all those in favor of the amendment by Mr. James to add a third assistant principal into the plan for Westport, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? And please lock in your votes. Starting from, okay. Good. And the motion passes 4-1. All right, we're now to the main motion as amended. That's time for your discussion.
I would like to talk about the staffing plan. And Mr. Crawford, I guess I feel like I'm fighting for the body and soul of this school system because I don't want our kids to go to hell in a handbasket. I guess is the only way I have to put it. I will fight for any cause worth fighting for because regrets are a lot more painful than the fight. I've always loved the scripture in Matthew 5:15. A small light can make a difference in many lives. And fellow board members, I'm asking you to realize the importance of your light's rays on the lives of many in this community. You know, I always fight for what I believe in and what I believe is right. Maybe I'm wrong, but I believe I'm right. And at a board meeting a couple of weeks ago, I spoke about institutionalized expenditures being buried in the budget like graves we never visit. Well, I watched as we made cuts and the staffing plan came to me and it had additional cuts. I realized those were graves. When I asked yesterday for a list of the people's names that were in those positions last year, there were no names. They were all vacant positions for the most part that have been vacant. And I was told that really the main names were the 3 assistant principals that Mr. Crawford and I spoke about Thursday. The majority of the staffing plan, where all these difficult cuts were made, were ghost. There was nobody in them last year. We haven't made difficult cuts yet. No wonder taxpayers call our budget a slush fund. And I've had a very brief time to look at the budget, and this is what I'm finding, that many of the positions, either they were retired or different things, but Mrs. Lisa Kozowski, I can't see her last name, Kosaka, she shared with me that most of the cuts were vacancies that were old staff positions. In fact, she said one of the vacancies in her department was an investigator that has been vacant for 3 years. And what I don't understand is why that wasn't identified last year and a teacher put in a classroom last year full time. But there is a silver lining to all of this. The hidden slush fund positions should start showing up at the end of the year when our final general fund balance comes up. We should maybe go over our $3 million in our general fund because these positions that weren't staffed, they were in the staffing plan, but they didn't have warm bodies hooked to them. They only had ghosts hooked to them. There should be some money coming back on that. We've offered many, many suggestions, possibly even principals working, less hours in the summer. My goodness, I thought the sky was going to fall when I suggested possibly not having the schools fully staffed all summer at certain times and people switch around and take breaks. Because Friday, the entire district is closed. It would have taken an act of Congress Friday for me to find someone. I called all around because I wanted to talk to people about this budget, and the offices were all closed, and it was okay for it to be closed Friday. So in the school, then our schools basically, I guess, since we're closed on Fridays, they're open 4 days a week.
They do 10-hour work days.
But they do 10-hour days.
10-hour
I
days, so
understand
they
that.
took the same
I
amount of
understand
hours.
that. But in the summer, they could possibly, that 1 month in the summer, they could work a 5-hour day, work part-time, and maybe not make their full salary and work 5 hours that day, and it would staff the school still until 1 or 1:30 that last month, instead of putting the principals on full 11-month contracts, maybe put them on, 11-month, somewhere in between to try to save some money. We talked about privatizing custodial. We know that the privatizing the custodial will put 80% of our teachers back in the classroom. We know that. But there's different reasons that different people feel that that's not what they want to do. So I met with Mr. Gregory on Thursday afternoon. We had a nice long visit. And he is looking at the way private sector does staff the schools, the private custodial companies. And I know he's working really hard to look at the private sector model to see how he can save money in custodial. And I do believe he's probably going to save some money because he's looking at the way he does it for custodial and also for lawn maintenance. We have quite a few different ways, like I said, to include the furlough days if that's where we have to go. A furlough day would pick up nearly $900,000 in a day. We only need $2.5 million. So we're finding, $150,000 here, a couple $100,000 there, $900,000 there. Mr. Gregory's going to work on the custodial and the lawn maintenance, and then we're going to obviously have a fund balance because we had positions that we had nobody in them gaining a salary from that were just put back into the staffing plan, that's been removed from the staffing plan. So really, we don't really have that many people that are no longer with us. We have positions that are no longer in the plan. But I have to ask, what food service would start their business and not staff the cooks first? I mean, what retail store would not staff the cashiers first? What school system would not staff the educators when we're in the business of education in the classroom? Back when we were in our heydays, even back then, when we had lots of money, we would hear this emotional cry for, we're going to lose our art teachers and our music teachers. Those poor art and music teachers have been the sacrificial lamb as long as I've been in Marion County. And it always seemed like it was just to get us all riled up so the community would say, let's have a tax increase. We got to put those people back in the classroom. And that's the reason. We've cried wolf so many times that the community doesn't believe us. And when I find positions like this that makes it look like a slush fund, it does make it hard for the community to want to support us. And then when we're subjecting, are we going to be a school system that says, to putting 100 teachers in a classroom, we're going to put 20 students in a classroom that their part-time teacher may be there part of the year, she may not. The kids will be constantly disrupted, getting a different adult before them that they have to bond with. And are we going to be known as the employer who puts teachers in our classroom, but a man teacher could go to our salary schedule and go to HR and apply for a painter's helper, not a painter, a painter's helper, and make more per hour than he's making as a classroom teacher. We have totally devalued the value of that classroom teacher's education because we are paying people in the district more per hour than we are paying the teachers. I just don't break promises. I'm going to ask the school board tonight to consider a motion to stop the practice at whatever it costs of treating our well-educated teachers as though they are half a teacher, while expecting them to do the job of a whole teacher. It is time to stop meeting this budget off of the backs of the most innocent, our students and their academic success. Mr. Crawford, you spoke so truthfully about how Tallahassee puts spending restraints on us. That is so true. Well, let's not perpetuate that on Mr. Tomlin. Possibly we can look at the board policy and see if there's some board policies we can change a bit to make it easier for him to have some positions that he can be more flexible with, like he is flexible with the certified teacher sub. Let's govern like we were elected to do, and possibly guide the superintendent to a new path where it's not just the path of least resistance, because it seems like here you have to go to heaven or you have to retire to be removed from the staffing plan, but a teacher gets fired after doing a great job all year. And that's, we are going to have to make hard decisions. And if board policy, possibly we've got some contracts that the school board approved that we could now look at and reconsider and cancel those contracts. In government, there is supposed to be a clause of convenience that we can get out of a contract if money doesn't show up to support it. And I was told that the certified sub position is the only position that we have with flexibility. We could give him some more positions. And Mr. James, when Mr. Crawford spoke of working with Tallahassee, you shared with him that this problem with the teachers right now is immediate. It's not something Tallahassee can fix for us. You shared with me, Mr. James, that people are hollering fire. The building's on fire. Everything's on fire. And that we have problems now. We need to address our problems. And I agree with you, Mr. James. And I think it's time right now that we all get together and get a huge bucket of water and put that fire out you were talking about. And we can do it. If we pull $200,000 here and there, we can put the teachers back in the classroom. Right now, the only water that seems to anybody's mustering up to put a fire out are the tears. A teacher stood here and spoke with us with tears rolling down his cheek. That water's not going to put many fires out. I guess it helps his heart. We need some rescuers, Mr. James. I need some help. Because can't we stop this tonight and all four of us pick that bucket up? And let's do a different way than treating our teachers as we're treating them. We need 5 strong school board members to lift that bucket and help us put this community back together and close this deal, Mr. James. I need help closing the deal. Mr. James, how can we teach Black History Month in February and expect teachers to tell their students how far we have come with equality when the teacher that is teaching the class is being treated less than equal to her colleague next door who is doing the same job at twice the salary? How do we think those teachers feel when they're in the teacher's lounge knowing that Mr. and Ms. Board Member believes the one standing at the coffee pot here is worth half what the other one's worth, even though they both graduated from the same school? Are you starting to understand, Board, why I have spoken? It's on several occasions about Black history and the lack of understanding of where our civil rights issue began and where we are now. Mr. James, do you remember what your family told you, what it was like to sit in the back half of the bus, not the front half? Because they were not as good as the people in the front. We are telling teachers every single day they're not as good as the other teachers. We're paying them half their worth, and it's just wrong. And y'all can, you can be shocked if you want to, but that's just the way I feel. I believe that we're not treating people equal in this district. And Martin Luther King said, our lives begin and end the day we become silent about the things that matter. And I'd like to tell this community that we are not going to go backwards on our philosophy on equality. And let's treat everyone in this district equal. If we're going to pay one teacher an amount, let's pay them all the same amount. Let's don't be the district that takes our employees back 50 years by treating some one way and some another way, and treating people unequal to those just because they had the bad luck of the draw. It's time for the teachers to not be the scapegoats of failed management skills any longer. And I don't know tonight if anyone here would entertain my motion. I would like to amend the staffing plan tonight, not tomorrow, to remove all certified teacher perm substitutes used for the purpose of balancing the budget and fully staff the teaching units, at least at minimal contract language. And we have a workshop to figure out where we're going to pull the money from. If it means a furlough day, I'll take mine. I'll pay back. If they can't furlough me, I'll pay. Whatever we have to do. If we can furlough people that makes over $50,000, maybe they can take 2 furlough days. And people under $50,000 take 1. I'll take 2 along with the over $50,000, even though I don't. That would pick up quite a bit of money. And I feel like the teachers need to be back in the classroom. And I guess that's all I have to say. And I don't know if anyone on this board wants to entertain that amendment or not. So I make a motion that we I would like to make an amendment to the staffing plan that we remove all certified teacher permanent substitutes, and y'all have a way of calling it. Used for the purpose of balancing.
You had all certified permanent, or
well, however y'all call them, the certified teacher permanent subs.
Certified teacher subs.
Certified teacher subs. Used for the purpose of balancing the budget, and instead fully staff the teaching units using at least minimal contract language.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, I'm having difficulty. I don't, well, it's hard to get it.
I know.
I'm sorry.
No, I'm not.
Fully staffed teaching units.
To staff the staffing plan, removing the certified term subs, not balance the budget off of them.
You said something about union contractors.
So, contract language. Okay.
Does everybody understand this, Stacy's
Yeah.
amendment? Okay, I need a second. Motion dies for lack of a second. We're going to go two different directions. I've got a superintendent over here that's got a couple legal pads worth of notes that he's been taking. Mr. James, did you want to comment on anything that was said? And then I'm going to the superintendent.
Ms. Stacy, I understand where you are, but you could help me a lot if you would start talking with the superintendent. By going into his office and y'all start talking to the superintendent. And that's important to me.
Well,
I don't want to go there. I'm just telling you, you know, I got all these people sitting out there, but I want some conversation.
I got something to say.
Yeah.
Is it real short?
Real short.
I think the
Funding for the
superintendent's-
staffing plan is directly related to student enrollment, tax revenues, and legislative actions. And knowing that the staffing plan is a guide to provide for an equitable distribution to all areas of the school, and knowing that there are many areas to revisit, I propose to my fellow board members that we adopt the plan as amended, with hopes of bringing it back for amendments as needed.
Well, that we can do. All right, Mr. Superintendent.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to clear up a few things. Tonight, you are not being asked to approve a budget, Mrs. Station, or any board member tonight. You're being asked to approve a staffing plan. And the staffing plan does include a full cadre of teachers. If you will recall, this board asked that this administration bring to you in April a staffing plan. And we did bring to you in April a staffing plan, something that we considered one that was fully staffed, doing everything that we thought was needed, 3 assistant principals, testing coordinators, whatever it might be. And you approved of that staffing plan, and we appreciate you doing that. You also encouraged us to come back to this board if we thought we needed to make amendments to that staffing plan. Board members who have witnessed this in the past did not want to approve a huge, fully funded staffing plan and then have vacant positions listed there, or unfilled positions, or whatever terminology you wanted us to do. So we decided to come back with an actual staffing plan, which is what was done tonight. You were provided electronically and also on paper tonight a staffing plan, both a district staffing plan and also a school-based staffing plan. You had lengthy discussion at a board work session last week that was productive. It led us to not having 3 assistant principals at our high schools, even though this superintendent wanted to make that recommendation to you tonight. I'll point out to you that this particular staffing plan that we are presenting to you tonight has 42 fewer units from the district plan that you approved in April. So we've eliminated more. I have not found any of those ghosts yet, Mrs. Stacy. I keep looking for them. If we look at school year 2012-13, which is what we are under, which you might have been talking with staff about, there are 91 fewer units in district units in tonight's staffing plan than were in the current sitting staffing plan, which we will operate under for the next 5 days. The staffing plan that is being proposed tonight has 435 fewer units from the school level staffing plan. Excuse me, make that 434 since you amended it with 1 additional assistant principal. I think it's important to note, as we consider the staffing plan tonight, that since school year 2006 and 7, since we do have a historical perspective here, we have had a 23% reduction in district staff. Since 2006 and 7, we've had a 14% reduction in district administrators alone. And since 2006 and 7, we've had a 10% reduction in instructional staffs, and our schools have not gotten any smaller. I'm a little bit interested in that hidden slush fund because Mrs. Boston Ellis knows that I go over to her office each and every day asking if she's found it yet, because I have not been able to find it.
I'm holding the staffing plan with all kinds of vacancies besides positions that Ms. Lisa filled in for me. And, I mean, I'll share it with anyone. It's not my writing, it's her
Well,
writing.
let me ask a real quick question. If a position is vacant,
Sure.
is there money assigned to it?
No, if it is technically vacant, no. If it is unfilled, there is money assigned to it,
And
correct?
these were unfilled
And
staff
we have
positions.
abandoned that practice at your interest, and at our interest also of producing a budget that lives within our means. And the budget is the next step we are going to be going through. And keep in mind, yes, the staffing plan does govern about 85% of our budget, so it does have a huge impact on our budget.
Mr. Crawford, I have a question.
So there's a difference between a budget and a staffing plan. The staffing plan is tonight. You have the two documents in front of you, plus you have it electronically also. And I believe that tonight, sir, is what you're being asked to take action on.
Okay, and let me just clarify.
Would you like to see my copy?
No, well, I'm going to go to you, Stacy, because let me tell you what I keep being told is if a position does not have a body, a name attached to it, since there's no way you can pay anybody a salary if obviously they don't exist, that money would just be held in our reserve. And therefore, that's the reserve that we're having to work off of. Don't forget, let's not forget, and this is directed to all the board members, not just anyone in particular. Let's not forget, the state is very clear what they demand that we maintain as a reserve. And if you fall under that percentage, it finally gets down to the point where if you keep dipping into it, where they get to walk in, take control of your school district, and cut everybody's salary. That they've already told us that's their first method of alleviating the problem. They're going to cut everybody's salary across the board until they get back up to that magic 3% that they want us to maintain. So, Ms. Stacy.
Okay. All I know is, I'm looking at the staffing plan that we were given, not the one from tonight. I mean, this was the one that Ms. Brenda copied for me. And it has a program, it says revised 6/24/13.
Is it for 2012?
13 and 2014. 13-14.
I can probably provide some clarification.
And I'm looking at the positions, like a program specialist. When we're counting how many positions, like 90 positions, I think this one increased by 41 more positions or something than the other one. And it has program specialist 260. It's got 0. That was a vacant position. We've got something down there where Stan Jacobs was, and it's a 0 position, and that it's a vacant position. We've got a couple of retired people. We've got a frozen position. Now, I don't know if on the frozen positions, if money was staffed in the budget last year for that, but these are positions that should have been in your budget last year because they're being counted as out of the budget now. And honestly, I can't find anybody. Every single position just says vacant, like it was a vacant position.
But if they're going to have a name attached to it.
It was in the staffing plan, though. The
I know,
money
but-
was.
No, the money was in the reserves.
Okay. Well, then we should have some reserve balance coming out of it. Let's just see if we have some money come out of the general fund reserve balance.
We've always, every year, because, when you're trying to run a district this side, there's always money in little individual accounts, and the finance department finally correlates that money. This year, though, I don't think there's going to be as much as we had in past, for a very simple reason. Because of the introduction of the new accounting package, we're probably doing a better job of keeping an eye on where money may be husbanded in an account that can be transferred in at the end of the year when they do the closeout versus what we've had to do before, where we had an accounting package and then we were having to do stuff on spreadsheets, and it was very hard.
Okay, well, what I asked for, Mr. Crawford, was, like, under energy management, it says energy education specialist. I would assume that in our staffing plan last year, this is the staffing plan, the new staffing plan, and it talks about positions that were removed. Energy education specialist, that was an open position. Nobody was in that position. Environmental mechanic, nobody was in that position. Accountant 1, nobody was in that position. And so, as of last year, I asked her to give me the numbers. What I'm wondering is all this money from these positions that were in a staffing plan. So then you're telling me that you did not take these numbers and then prepare your budget based upon these staffing positions?
No.
I thought that we staffed, I thought we
No,
looked at this and made our budget based upon our staffing.
Well, no, let me tell you, the budget is based on the positions that are actually being filled. In the past, we have left positions in there so that the administration did not have to repeatedly come back to the board if suddenly there was a need for a person in that particular area. The position had already been created.
Okay,
But there should have been no money.
Well, we'll find out if there was.
Assigned to that. In fact, is Ms. Kasakis here?
Well then,
Mr. Lankford can answer this.
Well, let me ask you then a very simple question. All the information that was given Mrs. Stacy, that all these empty positions, was there an actual dollar figure that you all had, well, I can't say you all because you've only been here, 6, 7 months, but the budget that you inherited, was there actually, because that was not what we intended last year.
Let me provide a little history. Prior to the current 12-13 staffing plan, which was done last summer sometime, before the elections and all that, each year the district provided a staffing plan, as Mr. Crawford
said. And those were based upon what they felt like they needed in order to provide the services for the school, both in the district side and in the instructional side. The past practice was that once they determined how much money they were going to have, they would determine if they could fund the entire staffing plan. When they decided they couldn't fund the staffing plan, then they unfunded some of those positions. So we have positions in 12-13 that this administration for 13-14 decided to not put into the staffing plan. So the staffing plan that you have for 13-14, which is that one, correct?
It was revised on 6/24.
That's for 13-14. That's for next school year.
Right.
All right. We made a staffing plan, and we said we need this many staff in order to provide the services. We've now cut it back. We didn't necessarily have somebody in each of those positions. Just like with a high school, we might say, here's 100 people that you're going to have for your staffing plan for your school. You might have 25 or 30 vacancies that after everything rolls through, then you're going to fill those vacancies. That's what the
don't you put the money in the budget for if you need to fill those positions?
See, we do the staffing plan first, and then once we do the staffing plan, then we try to fit the staffing plan to the budget. That's why we said, that's why the superintendent said, this is the staffing plan portion. We are still working to try to make sure the money covers all this. We might find that we have to amend the staffing plan even more.
Right.
But those people that you have, each one of the people that you have on there, we have plans for 13-14 budget to spend money for those people.
Okay. My position that I'm making is that we talk about making hard cuts and that we've cut a lot of people, 90-something people in, I guess, the district staffing plan, when you add 41 in this last one. But my position is that according to the paperwork that I got from HR yesterday, there was nobody in those positions anyway.
Correct.
So
Correct. Just
therefore,
like
no one was fired, Mr. Crawford.
Technically,
it was all just paper.
Technically, Ms. Stacy, nobody is at Vanguard High School for 13-14 because once the school year starts, then those people are in. Technically, there's not a deputy superintendent for curriculum and instruction for 13-14 because that year hasn't rolled around yet. Yes, there's somebody waiting to go into that position, and if that entire staffing plan is approved and we have the money for it, we will be hiring people for each of those. So what we are doing is, in April, we provided a staffing plan to you that had 91 district people more than what this one does. We then received budget numbers to indicate we can't afford the staffing plan as it was in April. So we have cut 91 people out of that staffing plan so that we have an opportunity to meet the budget that we have now determined that we're
Okay,
going to
then
have
I'll just-
$295 million.
Okay, then may I ask Miss Lisa a question? Could she come up? I want to ask her a question. I can't say her last name. Kozlowski?
Krisalka.
Krasalka.
Krisalka.
Sorry. Mrs. Krasalka. The position that I talked with you about in your department, where
Yes.
there was an
Investigator.
investigator that was in there, that position had been showing up for 3 years
That's
on
one
your
of the,
on the staffing plan. And I know now that position has been removed. Had you wanted to hire an or had someone in that department, I know you weren't in that department, I don't believe, but had someone in that department wanted to hire an investigator, it was staffed with money, wasn't it? And so that it would be a funded position?
I'm not the money person, so I can't answer that for you. I think it would have depended on whether or not it was frozen or unfunded. That may have been the difference.
Oh, I didn't know you were hiding over there. I didn't see you.
Good evening. I think the.
Help me, thank you.
Yes. I think the problem is distinguishing between the staffing plan, as Mr. Thomas said, and the budget. We would create a budget based on the staffing plan of the district administration. Then I would come back and say, we got to cut $25 million out of this budget.
Okay.
Then the administration would go and unfund those units, which means they would remove the budget from those units. Those units that were frozen were units that somebody was actually in the position, but we chose not to hire someone. So the staffing plan is totally different than what's budgeted.
So that my question to Ms.
There was no budget for that inspector you're talking about, that the person that went out and did the investigation.
Okay, so when we pick up a copy of the staffing plan,
That
that's
is-
not really fully funded.
No.
It wasn't in the past.
No.
But you're gonna
But
fully
this is
fund
a
this
change. They're changing to make sure that what you're receiving is what's funded.
Because we would have no way of knowing. So really then, all of the cuts though that were on here there were no people cut. They were just positions that were not funded,
both.
that were sitting there, there were no people cut. So there has been no one, for the most part, cut from the district that did not retire. So, you know, when we talk about difficult decisions and we've had to cut employees, best I can tell, the only employees that have been cut for the most part, laid off, are teachers and paras. Am I correct?
Yes, ma'am, that is.
Okay, thank you. That was my point. Thank you.
I would clarify that, and that has been the recommendation of this administration. As you approve a staffing plan, and then approve, as you are obligated by law, to approve a balanced budget. Those are the proposals that this administration has made that you consider as you go through the act of balancing the budget.
Well, right, that was the point that I wanted to make. That it appears in the newspaper that we've really worked hard and we've cut employees out of the district level and sort of things like that. But what we have cut are positions that were vacant anyway. Employees have not actually been cut. We've just cut positions that were vacant or frozen. The only actual warm bodies that have been cut are teachers and paras, as best I can figure out.
That is the recommendation that this administration is making as we use our budgeted funds from the state as to how we make our budget, our revenue meet our expenditures.
So the teachers have made up our entire budget shortfall.
No, ma'am, that's not correct.
The only ones that's been
We have eliminated another
Positions.
things, and we're not talking about budget tonight. We can, but we have eliminated other things also. And you have seen the one-page document we went over last week. We've reduced instructional budgets. We've transferred other instructional persons in the district to other positions. So we've done a lot of different things.
Yeah. Okay. And I'm going to vote for the staffing plan, because if I don't, I cannot bring it back for reconsideration. Because the only way you can bring something back for reconsideration is if you're on the prevailing side. So I will be supporting your staffing plan.
Ms. Ailey?
Yeah, I just wanted to share something with the public, that I did speak with Mrs. Krasalka today, and of all of our teachers who were released certified subs, 33 of them have already been brought back to priority positions, not based on their evaluation, but based on the position. For example, high school level physics. So we now have 33 of those teachers back, and I know you're working hard to get more of them back. So just hang in there, teachers. I know we've lost a lot of great teachers to other counties. I read about it, and I get a lot of emails and phone calls, but I know that the administrative team is working hard to get as many teachers back as possible on a teacher salary.
Anybody else on the board? All right. Seeing no further comment, we'll now proceed to vote. All those in favor of the 2013-2014 staffing plan as amended, please vote aye. All opposed, nay, and please lock your votes in. And the motion passes 5-0. Board may have a motion to approve the following donations: robotics setup kit and registration fee valued at $1,604.89 to Dr. N.H. Jones Elementary from Lena Slaughter. $1,069.95 to Dr. N.H. Jones Elementary School from Dr. N.H. Jones Elementary PTO. $1,000 to Forest High School from William and Nancy Shattuck. $1,000 to Forest High School from the markets of Marion. A 2004 vehicle valued at $1,150 to Marion Technical Institute from Robert Orts. $1,000 to Vanguard High School from DRJ Management Company Incorporated. I need a motion and a second, please.
So moved.
I have a motion from Ms. Ely.
Second.
Second from Mr. James. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay, and please lock in your vote. And the vote does pass 5-0. And Mr. James, would you please thank the community?
I just would like to thank everybody that have really made some donations to the school system, and especially these people that have made monetary donation. And it's just what good people do to help people and help our kids, and I just would like to just say thank you for that. And I'd like for that to coincide with what Ms. McGuire did, and all the volunteers that was here, the number of hours that we have. This is just a credit to the people in our community. And I know when I think in terms of donations that are being presented to our school, all of these funds help our kids, and this is what it's all about to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. James. Board, may I have a motion to approve the board directive that recommends amendments to Board Policy 8.54 to be reviewed at the September 19th, 2013 Administrative Briefing and Work Session. Upon consensus of the work session, direct the superintendent to schedule and hold a public hearing on said amendments to Board Policy 8.54 accordingly. I need a motion and a second.
Second.
Okay, a motion by Ms. Boynton, second by Mr. James. Ms. Boynton, this is your recommendation. Do you have any comments on it?
Well, as the district, as we're looking for new ways to bring in revenue to our community and to be less dependent on state funding and local property taxes, we have to be flexible with changing some of our policies, maybe instituting some naming rights on short-term or long-term basis. And the only way to effectively do that is to change our policy. This is why I'm recommending that we change our policy to be more flexible, to bring in more revenue without strings in our community.
Thank you, ma'am. Any other comments? If not, we'll go to the vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 All opposed? And please lock your vote in. All right, and I believe that passes 5-0. Board, some meeting reminders. The next administrative briefing and work session is scheduled for Thursday, July 18th, 2013 at 9 a.m. The purpose of the work session is to receive updates on investment summary, school planning, and strategic plan, as well as review of legacy elementary custodial services and a 5-year work plan. Also on July 9th, the school board meeting, the July 9th school board meeting has been canceled. Therefore, the next board meeting is scheduled for July 23rd, 2013 at 5:30 p.m. All right. Board, we're at concerns and comments, and I'm going to start with Ms. Boynton this evening.
Thank you.
I just want to share with the public that 4 of the 5 of us went to the Florida School Board Association conference in Tampa, and as our superintendent did as well. And that was a great meeting to connect and network with other school board members all over the state. I learned so much from talking to other people, and that's how we can become a better district, by from experiences from other districts, what has happened. We had great breakout sessions that we went to, as well as getting legislative updates. And it was a real learning experience and a great professional development 2 days for me, as well as those of us who attended. So I appreciate going, and had a new learning curve after that. Thank you.
Ms. Stacy.
I just want to thank all the teachers for hanging in there with us while we continue to sort through the budget. And hopefully we can put all the pieces and parts together where we can get our teachers back into the classroom full time, because it's just so unfair. It's so unfair for for 2 people in a teacher's lounge to be making 2 different salaries with the same education. It's just inequality, and I just feel that it's not the right way to go to try to balance this budget. And hopefully we'll keep working with Mr. Tomlin to get there. Thank you.
Mr. James.
One of the things I would like to say now, I have on my shoulder, all of us can make a difference. This is the pen that I have. And some of the things I will caution the board again, is that everybody is in a tight situation here. All the teachers, all the administrators, everybody here. And as a board, leadership is very important at this particular point in time. And when I hear things that I know there should have been some communication with all the people involved, and especially with the superintendent, and so he would have an idea of what we are facing. Our communication is terrible on this board. And I'm just saying, not referring, Ms. Stacy, I'm saying you need to talk to George Tomlin. Okay, and this is my...
James, you don't understand the situation.
Well, no, I don't want to know about it. I don't want to know about it. I don't want to know about it. Y'all go in the room and y'all figure it out. All I know is one thing. We got people out there that listen to every word we are saying. And I know that as a person that have been at an administrative level, we cannot do that. I read in the paper where I said I don't give a hoot. I don't never use a word like hoot. I never use a word like hoot in my life, but I saw that I wrote it somewhere.
And let me help you out, Mr. James. They misquoted you. That was actually should have been related to me.
I know. I just know all these things getting out here, and I know as a board we have to assume the role of leadership where we can sit here and come back and work with our staff and get some communication going here, because we are saying a lot of things out here, and I don't like to be telling people something. And then we have to come back and say, well, I didn't say that. Just like the kid running around saying we were going to charge him for IB programs. He heard that somewhere.
Well, we were just talking at a workshop.
Well, I understand that. What I am saying is, as professional people, we know that any little spark can start a fire. And we need to vet these things and talk with one another and communicate with one another. And then we're going to survive this thing. We will survive it. But we need to survive it as a collective group working together. This is my comment, and this is what I want us to do. This is important now, that we understand that we are, as a collective board, need to come out and show that we do have some leadership. I noticed, and I will say this again, I noticed that the sheriff is putting his thing out there, he needs some money. And I know we need some money. So we got to figure out, as a collective group, are we going to come together and say we need some money? I'll finish.
Okay. The one, and what you're talking about, I know, Mr. James, is you know, putting something on the ballot for an October election that some people are talking about. Here's the problem, is we're going to have to pay for it because since that's not a normally scheduled election other than for the city of Ocala, we would have to pay for us and the sheriff's department and the county commission, the city of Ocala, and all the people that want to put something on there, which, and if you talk about it, we're talking about probably an 8-cent sales tax by the time everything was, if everything got approved. But just figure it would probably cost us about $117,000. I don't know where the 117 would come from. But if you remember at the last work session, I did ask, and you all granted me permission to have ballot language ready to go. But we haven't even heard the county's even interested in doing it, and they're the only ones that can put it on the ballot. So, and they've got, I believe, until July, was it 16th? And they've got to have it on their agenda by July the 2nd, and it's. I don't even think the city is even talking about it anymore. So, but we'll see. You know. Yeah.
On the subject.
Yeah.
Let me ask you something. Sometimes people will give more freely if they're not taxed, and they're given the opportunity to give. I actually tried to call Mr. Albright the other day to see if this would be something that we could do, because I don't even know if it is or not. If we put together as a board a little something that he could insert into the, like I said, Ms. Morris will have to help me with this, into the tax notices, that we do have a foundation that does accept, you can give tax deductible dollars, you know, it's a nonprofit organization, and that if there are people in the community, because so many people say, well, I would give to the schools, give them the opportunity to do that. They could write a check to the foundation. We might surprise ourselves. We might give, I tell you one thing, I'd probably give 3 times as much on a donation than I would give if I was taxed. And I don't know if we can do it. I mean, it's something that.
Can I say something on
yes.
that? Yesterday I met with the Public Education Foundation, and funny that you said that is one of the directions that they are looking into for us endowments, for us even annuities and things like that. They're looking at that, and it's a possibility. And I would encourage you to go to the Public Education Foundation and meet with Lori Diario, and you would be amazed at what this district is trying to do to bring in new revenue. And I just want to commend them on it, but our public education is looking at it. If someone has an insurance policy that they look at and they think that they may want to give it to the school system, they're looking at those things and the ramifications of it, the policies behind it. And so those are things that they are looking at.
I guess what I'm saying is that takes, you know, that people have to read about that in the paper or read about it in one of the local magazines or something. But what this just came to me, this idea just kind of came to me. And I actually tried to call Mr. Albright yesterday, then he tried to call me back. We played phone tag for a few minutes because I was going to ask him, is this something that we could do where, you know, would we have to pay for this insert, just a small little piece of paper that could just be, when he's sorting his tax notices, that could just go in the envelope and say, we could fix the lingo where, you know, we are trying something new. Instead of taxing for this, we're offering the suggestion possibly you donate through the foundation. It is a nonprofit organization to support our teachers in schools. I don't know. So what if it only brought $1,000 or $1 million or $10 million? We don't know what it would bring.
One of the things I just was talking about, we cannot, as a board, have the Sunshine State rules where we cannot meet together. But the superintendent serve as a conduit, where he can, if you have an idea, that he can, you go to him and he can boom, boom, boom. Okay, now when I'm seeing it, I see all these people out there shaking their head, boy, that's a great idea. But we need to be able to take this over here, boom, run it through Mr. Crawford, run it through us, and he
Morris
can.
is signaling something.
But he can go to George.
We can't do it. Well, see, that's what I was asking Ms. Morris. Is it something?
A superintendent or anybody else is a conduit.
Well, he can tell us what's going on around there.
Well, Ms. Morris, is this something though that, in your professional opinion, is this something what we could, even if we had to pay a nominal fee to have this inserted into the tax notices?
It would probably be something that would be better done by the foundation.
Okay.
And here's the
Well,
problem.
that's what, okay, that's.
And I think, and I don't want to rain on your parade, it might be a great idea. The problem that I foresee for the tax collector is, remember, the trim notice is so tightly regulated of what has to be on there and what can't be, on there, that,
No, this would just be an insert. It wouldn't go
yeah,
in his
but
paper.
the problem is that I think what I don't want to put words in Mr. Albright's mouth. I mean, I could see what he'd say is then everybody and their brother's going to want to come in there. And
But this would be just another government entity. I mean, it wouldn't be.
well,
Or maybe
I don't know.
the commissioner, someone would have to
Yeah,
vote on that.
yeah, I just.
Okay.
We could, okay. Let's go, Ms. Morris, anything? Nothing? Madam Secretary? Okay, Mr. Superintendent.
Thank you, Mr. Crawford. Just a couple of comments here. Again, thank you for spending this important time on working with our staffing plan and looking at other issues. Last Thursday at a work session, we had an opportunity to talk about a number of budget issues, and I'd like to remind every one of those right now. I think it's a good time to summarize. I won't be nearly as lengthy as I was last week, because certainly our school budget is on the minds of many in our community. You know that you as a board are responsible for producing a balanced budget for school year 2013-14. There's a specific timeline that is dictated by the state. This administration assists you, and we prepare a budget for you with recommendations and suggestions, and you are the board that does make that determination on what we actually use. You already know, as we've been reminded many times, and we've been reminding you for a long time, here the last 8 months at least, that we did use fund balance, and we've gone down to the bare bones of our fund balance, and we can no longer use our savings account to help balance our budget. We must live within our means. You've heard me say that more, and we cannot have our expenditures exceed the revenues that we'll be receiving. Our estimated revenue, and here's some numbers you can begin to think about, and you've seen these before. Our estimated revenue for 2013-14 is $295 million. Our initial estimated expenditures, based on the staffing plan, based on budget requests and things like that, was $324 million, and therein lies that $29 million deficit that we have. Our administrative budget team has met as a group. We met with you as individuals when you've chose. We discussed the recommendation, and then we brought those to you last week, and we've shared those with many people. In those recommendations, as we balance our budget, we've recommended reducing the staffing plan, which you approved tonight, to a huge tune. We've reduced school budgets. We've eliminated a number of positions. We used the concept of using certified substitutes in teaching positions as part of our recommendation. We've restructured some of our programs also. This administration, and we need to emphasize this, is very important, did not recommend closing schools. This administration did not recommend that we go to a 4-day week. This administration did not recommend the reduction or elimination of health benefits or life insurance benefits for our employees. This administration did not recommend across-the-board pay cuts or furlough days. However, if we have to make significant cuts in the future, this is certainly something that we would be venturing to propose to you. We did not recommend eliminating school resource officers, or, as already been mentioned tonight, the privatization of custodial or transportation. We've attempted to be very creative and resourceful. We've utilized the strengths and knowledge of our team members. Budget process is very, very complicated, and I'm grateful that we have assembled a unique team that can address these challenges. I appreciate your continued individual and collective input into this process, and look forward to working with you as we tackle these challenges. On a lighter note, and a little different note, this morning I had the opportunity to attend a Public Education Foundation annual meeting. It was a showcase of the wonderful programs that are provided through that organization. You've all mentioned it once or twice tonight. Special thanks to the many businesses that sponsor and business partners who support the foundation. And thank you to this board for supporting that particular organization. Announce to you that next week, we are working at 10-hour days now, but next week we'll be working 4 8-hour days. We will be celebrating Thursday as the 4th of July. Offices here will be open Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, and then again on Friday of next week. Also, I'll share with you that the Department of Education, you may have read this in the newspaper, has formed a task force to look at school grades. This advisory task force was formed by the Commissioner at the direction of direction of the Board of Education to review the factors involved in determining school grades this year. There may be some changes. Their first meeting will be July 1. We do not know if that's going to impact the release of those grades or going to impact grades as they might have already been calculated by some of our principals. We've also received specific directives from DOE regarding the mandatory raises for effective and highly effective employees. Our HR department will be working with our union to discuss how that is negotiated. And finally, just this morning, we did receive direction from DOE regarding our dual enrollment costs or anticipated costs for next year. We haven't even had an opportunity to digest this document thoroughly yet. I did see Dr. Henningsen this morning from our junior college. We want to work together, but it is going to be a cost or an expense for this board for the next school year at least. That's all I have, sir.
All right, and what was on the July 1st date that you had?
The July 1st date is the first meeting date of the Department of Education's task force, the advisory task force, to look at school grades. We might hear something soon after that.
Okay, and they've given, well, have they had set a deadline? They've got to have their report back, or
There was no mention of a deadline in the news bulletin that I saw today.
All right. Oh, who do you know? I know they were going to appoint 3 superintendents from around the state. Was there any announcement?
I do not have. Yes, the announcement is there. I can forward it to you. I know that Superintendent from Hillsborough County, Marion Ilia, Wally Cox from Highlands County, Dr. Calvuto from Dade County, if I can say that correctly. I apologize to him for not pronouncing that appropriately, and I think there's one other, but I'm not certain. I know Senator Montford is on there. There are a number of other representatives from DOE that also are serving on that task force, along with Commissioner Bennett.
Mr. Chairman, excuse me for interrupting, but the new principals will be at their, we've got a lot of changes in principals. They'll be at their new schools starting next week.
Yes, ma'am.
Is that correct? So if parents want to go out to meet the principal of the new principal at their school, they will be in place next week.
Yes, ma'am.
As I intend to myself.
Okay, thank you.
While we're talking about principals, do we have one yet for North Marion?
No, sir, we're interviewing this week for the principal position at North Marion High School.
Okay. All right. All right, before addressing expulsion matters, I wish to acknowledge that the board members have received the alternative placement list for students through June 7, 2013. Are there any parents in the audience who wish to speak on behalf of a student regarding a discipline matter? Seeing none. May I have a motion to approve the expulsion of student JD 13-85, JD 13-86, and JD 13-87 with educational services through the 2013-2014 school year. Board members, I need a motion and a second.
Second.
All right, motion by Ms. Ely, second by Mr. James. Any comments on any of these expulsions? Seeing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? And please lock in your votes. And I believe that did pass 5-0. And it did. Board members, do you know of any reason or any additional item that needs to come in front of the board this evening? Seeing none, I see. I need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, motion by Mr. James, second by Ms. Ely. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? And I know that will pass 5-0. And the board stands adjourned at 8 o'clock.